So good morning, forestry students. Today we will be discussing forest policy and governance, and we will start with modules 1 and 2 on the foundations of forest policy and governance. So considering that the title of this course is forest policy, we will start on what a policy is. Now, before we can talk about forest policy, we need to understand the basic concept of a policy itself. So, think of it as a statement of intent, di ba? Ano ba yung gusto nating mangyari? It is a guiding principle, a rule, or a plan of action that an organization or a government adopts. The goal of a policy is to help achieve specific goals and objectives in a rational and consistent way. So, ano ba yung mga dapat gawin para ma-achieve yung gusto nating mga outcome, right? So for example, let's take a school's no smoking policy, no? The objective is of course to create a healthy and safe environment. The policy, which might state smoking is prohibited on school grounds, is the rule that guides the actions of the students. So ito yung dapat nilang gawin, no, ng students and staff to achieve the objective na magkaroon ng healthy and safe environment. It is not just a suggestion. It is a formal course of action that is followed to achieve a desired outcome. So, ibig sabihin, when we talk of policy, it manifests or clarifies specific organizational goals. Ano yung gusto nating mangyari? Objectives, values, or ideals, and often prescribes the obligatory or most desirable ways and means for their accomplishment. Ano yung gagawin para ma-achieve natin yung goal na gusto nating mangyari? But how about forest policy? Forest policy is simply a more specific type of public policy. It is a government's official course of action regarding the use, management, and conservation of forest resources. The key to a forest policy is that it manifests or makes clear the specific goals and values of the government or agency that created it. For example, a policy might state that the goal is to protect a certain percentage of the country's forests or to ensure that timber harvesting is done sustainably. Siyempre, hindi pwedeng maubos ang mga puno. So, dapat magkaroon ng forest policy regarding the sustainability and harvesting of the timber from the forest. The policy also prescribes the most desirable ways to achieve those goals. So, it might outline regulations on timber cutting, no? Paano yung pagpuputol ng mga puno? Or establish a system for community-based forest management na meron nga tayo sa Pilipinas. You can often tell what a policy's objectives are just by looking at the rules it creates. As you saw, no, in the previous board exam questions, understanding this definition is crucial. So, make sure na tandaan nyo yung definition nitong policy and forest policy. Why is forest policy important? Na? So, why should we care about forest policy ba? Why is this a whole subject on its own? It's because policies are the backbone of how we manage our forests. First, no, unang-una sa lahat, there is conservation. Policies are what gives us protected areas, sets the rules for logging, and helps us preserve biodiversity. Second is sustainability. No, remember that a forest is not a finite resource. Nauubos yan. Remember the definition that we just talked about. Policies are the tools that ensure we're not using up our resources too quickly. Kasi kung hindi, mauubos yan. They create a framework to ensure that our forests can continue to provide for future generations, not just for us. Okay? Third is economic, yung economic aspect. Policies govern the industries that depend on our forests. This includes managing timber harvesting and the collection of non-timber products kagaya ng rattan and other medicinal plants. They help ensure these industries are regulated and contribute to the national economy in a sustainable way. And finally, and this is the big one for the licensure exam, is the social side. No? Merong social aspect ang forest policy. This one deals with the rights of indigenous peoples and ensure social equity, no? Because policies address the people who live in and around the forests. Okay? So this is a core part of what we call social forestry, making sure that forest management benefits local communities and not just large corporations. So the policies are how we address these complex issues. So, paano ba nagsimula itong forest policy? Of course, understanding this history will help us see why our current laws are the way they are. First, we have the pre-colonial era. So, bago dumating yung mga Spaniards or yung mga sumakop sa atin, okay? So, before the Spanish arrived, of course, there was no single national forest policy kasi wala pa naman tayong state at that time. We don't have a national government at the time. Instead, management was governed by a system of customary laws. These were unwritten rules and traditions that were passed down through generations. Ownership was often communal. Eh di ba kaya nga sa ancestral domain it is owned by the tribe or the people mismo. Okay? Ownership was communal. A whole community would manage and use the forest resources together, and access was based on community membership rather than individual title. Although, eventually, nagkaroon din tayo ng concept ng ancestral land. But before that, of course, we have the concept of ancestral domain. Next came the Spanish colonial period. This is a very important time because this is when the concept of state ownership was introduced through the Regalian Doctrine, which we will discuss more extensively later. The Spanish crown declared that all lands, forests, and other natural resources in the Philippines belong to the king. This fundamentally changed the way people viewed and used the land, shifting from communal use to a system where all the land ay pagmamay-ari ng state, no, unless proven otherwise. And then, when the Americans came during the American colonial period, the forest administration became more formalized. The Americans established the Bureau of Forestry, a government agency dedicated to managing the country's forests. This period also saw the appointment of the very first professional foresters. So nagkaroon na ng foresters at that time, marking the beginning of scientific forestry in the. And finally, in the Commonwealth and post-war eras, the focus shifted to economic development. So during this time, when the focus shifted to economic development, we had to consider that there was a growing population and new industries were being developed. So there was an increased demand for timber. This led to a period of extensive commercial logging and a corresponding need for more formal regulations to manage the pace and impact of forest use. So now we go to provisions of the Constitution. But before we go to that, let's understand first, ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng Constitution? The term Constitution refers to that body of rules and principles in accordance with which the powers of the sovereignty are regularly exercised. So basically, the Constitution, yan yung nagde-define ano ba yung ating government and ano ba yung powers na meron ang gobyerno natin, no? It covers both written and unwritten constitutions. But with particular reference to the Constitution of the Philippines, it may be defined as a written instrument by which the fundamental powers of the government are established, limited, and defined, and by which these powers are distributed among the several departments or branches for their safe and useful exercise for the benefit of the people. So sa Constitution, makikita natin ano yung mga powers ng government Kani-kanino ito dinistribute? Sino ang pwedeng mag-exercise nito? Kagaya ng ang executive function ay binibigay sa presidente. Ang legislative function at kung ano ba yon ay binibigay sa Kongreso. At ang judicial powers ay binibigay sa Supreme Court at sa mga korte. So yung Constitution, not only does it establish and define these powers, in most cases, nagbibigay din siya ng limitations para maiwasan ang abuse. In our context, take note that the 1987 Philippine Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It serves as the supreme or fundamental law. It is the charter creating the government, and it has the status of a supreme or fundamental law as it speaks for the entire people from whom it derives its claim to obedience. Remember, ang pinakaumpisa ng Constitution is the preamble, which starts with we, the sovereign Filipino people. So ibig sabihin, tayong mga citizens ng Pilipinas, tayong mga Filipino people ang nagtalaga at nag-ratify sa Constitution. So in that sense, the Constitution is binding on all individual citizens and all organs of the government. It occupies the highest level in the hierarchy of laws. So, ibig sabihin, walang batas na pwedeng sumalungat sa sinasabi ng Constitution. The Constitution provides the legal basis for all forestry laws and rules, including PD 705 and all other Republic Acts. Okay? Second, the Constitution likewise establishes the basic framework and underlying principles of the government. Kaya dito rin natin makikita ang fundamental principles on natural resources as we will discuss in the succeeding slides. So now we go to Article 2, Declaration of Principles and State Policies. In Section 16 of Article 2, it states that the state shall protect and advance the right of the people to a balanced and healthful ecology in accord with the rhythm and harmony of nature. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng ecology? Ecology is that branch of science that deals with the study of the interrelationships of living things such as organisms, plants, and animals, including their environment. No? So, dito, the Constitution recognizes the effect of our ecology on the quality of life. Many people today are unable to live in dignity as human beings because they cannot acquire the necessary food, housing, health, sanitation, and education as a result of the deterioration of the environment. So, the quality of life of the people cannot advance unless the living environment is nurtured and valuable natural resources are protected and preserved. Okay? When we go to Section 19, ang sinasabi naman dito is that the state shall develop a self-reliant and independent national economy effectively controlled by Filipinos. So, ibig sabihin nito, the constitutional guidelines in the development of the economy are economic self-reliance, independent national economy, and effective Filipino control of the economy. The details of this one is discussed in more detail when we get to national economy and patrimony. So dito, in Section 1, it states, no, Article 12, National Economy and Patrimony. Sabi dito, the goals of the national economy are, number one, a more equitable distribution of opportunities, income, and wealth, a sustained increase in the amount of goods and services produced by the nation for the benefit of the Filipino people, and third, an expanding productivity as the key to raising the quality of life for all, especially the underprivileged. So, ang goal talaga natin with our national economy is that lahat ay umangat. There should be a more equitable distribution of opportunities, income, and wealth. Dapat mag-increase ang production natin as a nation and expanding productivity as the key to improving the quality of life for everyone. To achieve these goals, the state shall promote industrialization and full employment based on sound agricultural development and agrarian reform. Kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng agrarian reform. Yung pinamimigay yung mga lupa sa mga magsasaka through industries that make full and efficient use of human and natural resources, which are competitive in both domestic and foreign markets. However, dito na sinasabi na the state shall protect Filipino enterprises against unfair foreign competition and trade practices. So gusto pa rin naman natin na mauna ang pagpopromote ng Filipino industries, and enterprises. Okay? Take note, in the pursuit of these goals, all sectors of the economy and all regions of the country shall be given optimum opportunity to develop. Yung mga private enterprise, including corporations, cooperatives, and similar collective organizations, shall be encouraged to broaden the base of their ownership. So, yan yung nakasaad sa Section 1. When we say national economy, it refers to the entire structure of the economic life in the country. So, kasama dito yung lahat ng activities relating to or concerned with production, distribution, consumption of goods and services, or what are called factors of production. When we say national patrimony naman, it consists of the national wealth and possessions of a country derived or acquired from the past or from past generations and in turn transmitted to the next generation and so on successively. So, tandaan natin na kasama sa national economy yung national patrimony. So when we say national patrimony, mas dito tayo magfo-focus because this one refers primarily to the natural resources of our country, which, under the Constitution, includes all lands of public domain, waters, minerals, coal, petroleum, and other mineral oils, all forces of potential energy, fisheries, forests, or timber, wildlife, flora, and fauna, and all maritime wealth in its archipelagic waters, territorial sea, and exclusive economic zone. So again ha, yung national patrimony kasama lahat ng natural resources. Ano pa? Kasama din sa national patrimony ang cultural heritage and resources including historical landmarks. Kasama yan sa national patrimony. All the natural resources are owned by the state. So ibig sabihin, Filipino people, as part of their inalienable common heritage from their forefathers, kasama sa ating national patrimony. Therefore, it is the obligation of every generation of Filipinos to love and care for their national patrimony, to conserve and develop it for the benefit of succeeding generations. Under Section 2 of Article 12, ang sabi naman dito, all lands of the public domain, waters, minerals, coal, petroleum, um, and other mineral oils, all forces of potential energy, so pati yung mga hydro, solar, no, all forces of potential energy, fisheries, forests or timber, wildlife, flora and fauna, and other natural resources are owned by the state. So itong statement na to reflects the Regalian Doctrine. With the exception of agricultural lands, all other natural resources are not to be alienated. So, bawal ibenta ng government yung mga ibang natural resources. Remember yung enumeration, di ba? From public domain all the way to wildlife, flora, and fauna. Lahat yan owned by the state. And the state cannot sell these things unless mag-fall under yan sa definition or classification ng agricultural lands. It is and will always be owned by the state. The exploration, development, and utilization of natural resources shall be under the full control and supervision of the state. Kasi nga, state ang owner niyan. The state may directly undertake such activities. So, pwedeng yung state mismo ang mag-explore or magmina ng mga resources. But, it can also enter into co-production, joint venture, or production sharing agreements with Filipino citizens. So, bawal ang aliens. No? So, kailangan Filipino citizens. Or corporations or associations at least 60% of whose capital is owned by Filipinos. The agreements may be for a period not exceeding 25 years, pero pwedeng ma-renew for not more than another 25 years. And under such terms and conditions as may be provided by law. In case of water rights naman, for irrigation, water supply, fisheries, or industrial uses, other than the development of water power, yung beneficial use may be the measure and limit of the grant. So, dito sa Article 2, it tells us about, again, the state ownership of natural resources. When we talk of the Regalian Doctrine, our Constitution adopts the Regalian Doctrine with respect to the natural resources of the country. So, ibig sabihin nga, lahat ng nakita nyo kaninang enumeration, dun sa first sentence, those are owned by the state. The adoption of the Regalian Doctrine was considered a necessary premise for the recognition of the power of the state to control the exploration, development, and utilization of the natural resources. Okay? So, unless public land is shown to have been reclassified as alienable or disposable and subsequently alienated by the state, it remains part of the public domain. So, kahit pa yan, agricultural land, kung hindi pa yan na-declare as alienable and disposable at hindi pa yan nalipat sa isang private individual, the presumption is that piece of land is still owned by the state. Na? So, occupation or possession thereof by a person in the concept of an owner, no matter how long, cannot ripen into ownership. Kahit magstay ka ba dyan sa lupa na yan, kung wala kang title, general rule, hindi yan pwedeng maging sayo. Kasi yan nga ay pagmamayari ng state. Ano ba ang objectives ng pag-a-adapt natin ng Regalian theory? Number one is to ensure the conservation of our natural resources for Filipino posterity or yung mga future generations to come. Okay? Second is to serve as an instrument of national defense, helping prevent the extension into the country of foreign control through peaceful economic penetration, di ba? Kaya nga ang pwedeng mag-develop explore at mag-utilize ng natural resources ay mga Filipino lamang. Eh, hindi pwedeng magkaroon ng economic takeover by aliens. Third, to prevent making the Philippines a source of international conflict with the consequent danger to its internal security and independence. Okay? When we talk of alienation of agricultural lands of the public domain, take note, the state is not authorized to alienate, not even to Filipinos, the natural resources of the country. Andito na tayo sa second sentence, di ba? With the exception of agricultural lands, all other natural resources shall not be alienated. Only agricultural lands of the public domain may be alienated and only to Filipino citizens. Alienation is allowed because other provisions ensure their conservation and development by Filipino citizens. Okay? Let's go now to the next paragraphs of Section 2. Sabi dito, the state shall protect the nation's marine wealth in its archipelagic waters, territorial sea, and exclusive economic zones, and reserve its use and enjoyment exclusively um, to Filipino citizens, rather. So, ibig sabihin, dapat the state has the obligation to protect the nation's marine wealth, no? And to reserve its use and enjoyment exclusively to Filipino citizens. When we say marine wealth, anong kasama dito? Marine wealth includes everything found in the sea, life or non-life. For economic reasons alone, the Philippines is fortunate to have been an archipelago, 'di ba? So ibig sabihin, um most of the treasures in the ocean depths are which are still untouched to date actually belong to the state, no? So the state has the duty and obligation to preserve the marine wealth for the use and enjoyment of the Filipinos. Okay? Next, the Congress may by law allow small-scale utilization of natural resources by Filipino citizens as well as cooperative fish farming with priority to subsistence fishermen and fish workers in rivers, lakes, bays, and lagoons. So, pwede naman yung small scale na paggamit ng mga natural resources. Huwag lang yung commercial na pangmalakihan, 'di ba? So, pwede yung cooperative fish farming, no? Lalo na kung ito yung ikinabubuhay nila. Yan ang ibig sabihin ng subsistence fishermen. Okay? How about entering into agreements with foreign-owned corporations? Pwede if they will provide technical or financial assistance for large-scale exploration, development, and utilization of minerals, petroleum, and other mineral oils according to the general terms and conditions provided by law. So, pwede tayong tumanggap ng technical or financial assistance with foreign-owned corporation. But take note, ano yung mga condition bago ito mangyari? The agreement must only involve only either technical or financial assistance. Hindi pwedeng magka-ownership. Never na pwedeng maging yung foreign corporation ang magiging may-ari. Second condition, it must be for a large-scale exploration. Example, ng petroleum, di ba? Sa gitna ng dagat yan ginagawa, no? And other mineral oils. Third, yung provision nito must be according to the general terms and conditions provided by law. And next, the President shall notify the Congress of any contract entered into within 30 days from execution. Okay? So, pwede naman, subject to certain conditions. Now, let's go to another aspect of the Regalian Doctrine. Under Section 3, it says, lands of public domain are classified into agricultural, forest or timber, mineral lands, and national parks. When we say agricultural lands, no, lalo na public domain, it can be further classified, okay, based on the uses to which they may be devoted. Alienable lands of the public domain shall be limited to agricultural lands, meaning agricultural lands lang ang pwedeng ibenta ng state. Private corporations or associations may not hold such alienable lands of public domain except by lease for a period not exceeding 25 years, pwedeng ma-renew ng another 25 years more, no? And yung sa area, hindi pwede mag-exceed ng 1,000 hectares. Citizens of the Philippines naman may lease not more than 500 hectares or acquire not more than 12 hectares thereof by purchase, homestead, or grant. No? Sabi sa Constitution, taking into account the requirement of conservation, ecology, and development, and subject to the requirements of agrarian reform, the Congress shall determine by law the size of lands of public domain which may be acquired, developed, held, or leased, and the conditions therefore. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, under the Constitution, lands are classified into agricultural, forest or timber, mineral, and national parks. Now, when we say agricultural, these are lands devoted principally to the raising of crops such as rice, sugar, tobacco, coconut, or for farming. Okay? Next is forest or timber, and these are lands producing wood or are able to produce wood. Or if agricultural crops on the same land will not bring the financial return that timber will, or if the same land is needed for protection purpose. So yun naman yung forest or timberland. When we say mineral lands, these are lands in which minerals exist in sufficient quantity. So dapat may sapat na quantity or quality to justify the necessary expenditures to be incurred in extracting and utilizing such minerals. And when we say national parks, these are lands maintained by the national government as a place of beauty of public recreation like eto, di ba dito tayo sa Aurora, meron tayong Aurora National Park, no? It's also possible that this national park is a forested land reserved from settlement and maintained in its natural state for public use, no? Or as a wildlife refuge. Remember again, no, out of these four, only agricultural lands can be alienated. And ibig sabihin nito, Congress may further classify by law agricultural lands of the public domain according to the use, no, to which they may be devoted. Example ng agricultural lands ay residential, resettlement, grazing land. So, yan yung mga posibleng maging classification. Ano yung mga basis and rationale for classification? Either it can be the nature of the land, and second is another factor to be considered is to safeguard the land against land speculation. Okay? Um, If we look at Section 3, sinabi rin dito ano yung mga maximum size of land holdings. But remember, our focus is more on the forest or timberlands. No? Kasi nga, yun yung ating topic, forest policy and governance. But just know that as a consequence of the Regalian Doctrine and Section 3 of the Article 12 of the Constitution, forest or timberlands can never be sold. It should always be owned by the state. So just to summarize, the Regalian Doctrine's origin is rooted in Spanish colonial law. So it was in the time of the Spanish regime when all lands were declared to be owned by the king. Kaya nga jura regalia, meaning rights of the king. It was brought to the Philippines by the Spanish colonizers and has been a cornerstone of our legal system ever since. The core principle is simple, yet it's very powerful, di ba? All lands of the public domain and all natural resources contained within those lands are owned by the state. It establishes a system where private ownership of land can exist, but all natural resources remain owned by the state. Sa gobyerno pa din yan. Okay? When we talk of the Doctrine, no? So, what are the implications of the Regalian Doctrine? What does it mean in practice? Of course, first, it establishes state control because the state owns the resources. Ultimately, the state also controls the management, use, and disposition of the natural resources. Ito yung reason why agencies like the DENR exist and exercises the power that they do over our natural resources. Second, it means that any individual or corporation wanting to utilize these resources, whether it's for logging, mining, or water use, must do so through a licensing system. They need to secure permits, licenses, or special agreements from the government, and you can't just harvest timber from public forests without a permit. Lastly, of course, kailangan din natin ng concept of stewardship. Instead of a simple ownership relationship, the state now entrusts citizens and communities with the management of these resources. Ito naman yung basis ng programs like community-based forest management that we will discuss in the later weeks, no? Okay, ano naman yung mga key concepts that are related to what we have learned so far? So we have three key concepts such as sustainable development, environmental management, and social equity. These are the key concepts that guide modern forest policy. Okay? So when we talk of sustainable development, this means that the development must meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. As we have mentioned earlier, no, the forest is a finite resource. Nauubos yan. So if we're going to use forest resources, we must ensure that we are not compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Hindi natin uubusin tapos wala nang magagamit yung future generations. Okay? Next, building on the environmental pillar, of course, we need to talk about environmental management. This is the practical application of environmental policy, and it is about how we manage human interactions with the environment to protect and maintain our natural resources. In the context of forestry, this includes practical tasks like implementing sustainable harvesting methods, carrying out reforestation projects to restore degraded lands, and managing protected areas to preserve their biodiversity. Ito yung how-to side of protecting our forests. Okay? And lastly, when it comes to social equity, this is a core principle in modern forest policy. It's about ensuring fair and equitable access to and distribution of forest resources. For a long time, forest policy was focused on large-scale commercial logging, which often excluded local communities. So parang naetsepwera naman yung ating mga katutubo. Social equity as a guiding principle aims to change that. Ina-address nito yung widening gap between the rich and the poor, which is often most pronounced in the upland areas where our forests are located. This concept is the reason behind many of our community-based forest programs. So, exploring into the pillars of sustainable development. Ano yung mga three pillars of sustainable development? Uh, we often break down the concept of sustainable development into three interconnected pillars. The first is the economic pillar, which means that development should be economically viable, no? It is not about stopping all the resource use. Kailangan pa rin naman natin ng forest, hindi pwedeng tumigil yan. But we have to make sure that the industries we have are efficient and productive without being destructive. The second pillar is the social pillar. This is about promoting social equity and justice. It means that the benefits of forest resources should be shared fairly and that marginalized communities like those in upland areas are not left behind. And the third and the last pillar is the environmental pillar. This is about ensuring that our actions are ecologically sound. It means protecting our ecosystems and maintaining the natural life support systems like clean air and water, diba? We will study that later on also because it is something that we depend on as well, no? Not just as forest, not just the forest. A good forest policy must find the right balance between all of these three pillars. Okay? Now we go to Presidential Decree 1151 or the Philippine Environmental Policy, which was issued on June 6, 1977 by then President Ferdinand Marcos, no, the elder one. Okay? So in this presidential decree, it talks about the continuing policies of the state. No? So the PD 1151 is the Philippine Environmental Policy. So what are the continuing policies of the state? Unang-una is to create, develop, maintain, and improve conditions under which man and nature can thrive in productive and enjoyable harmony with each other. Kasi nga ginagamit natin yung mga forest at iba pang natural resources. And at the same time, we are interacting with it. So, dapat harmonize at magka-productive yung man and nature. Second is to fulfill the social, economic, and other requirements of present and future generations of Filipinos. Again, we go back to the principle of sustainable development. Hindi pwedeng ubusin natin ang natural resources at wala nang magagamit yung ating future generations. We have to think about their requirements as well. Okay? Sorry. A third is to ensure the attainment of an environmental quality that is conducive to a life of dignity and well-being. Okay? How about the goals of our policies? Unang-una is that we recognize, discharge, and fulfill the responsibilities of each generation as trustee and guardian of the environment for succeeding generations. The second goal is to assure the people of a safe, decent, healthful, productive, and aesthetic environment. No? Dapat maganda. Kasama yun sa ating goal. Okay? Third is to encourage the widest exploitation of the environment without degrading it. So, paano natin ma-maximize yung paggamit sa ating mga resources, pero hindi naman natin dinedegrade yung ating mga forest or endangering human life, health, and safety. 'Di ba? We know naman that kapag inubos natin ang forest, we are prone to landslides and flooding, right? So, how do we maximize use of the resources without endangering human lives, okay? Or creating conditions adverse to agriculture, commerce, and industry. Another goal is to preserve the important historic and cultural aspects of the Philippine heritage. So remember, we have the concept of ancestral domains, no, and also the national parks. Actually, even Rizal Park is considered a national park. So kahit hindi siya forest, it is part of preserving the important historic and cultural aspects of our Philippine heritage. 'Di ba? Remember, kasama yan sa national patrimony. Another goal is to attain a rational and orderly balance between population and resource use because of course, if we are overpopulated, mas marami ang gagamit. Kung hindi mapigilan ang population, the resources must be also sufficient in order to meet the needs of the growing population. Okay? And lastly, we must improve the utilization of renewable and non-renewable resources. Okay, in PD 1151, it also recognizes the right to a healthy environment. In PD 1151, the government recognizes the right of the people to a healthy environment, and it should be the duty and responsibility of each individual, hindi lang ng government, so all of us. It is the responsibility of each individual to contribute to the preservation and enhancement of the Philippine environment. Okay? So, in this PD 1151, it is also the first time that the government mentioned, no, environmental impact statements. So later on, nagkaroon pa ng ibang laws about the requirement for an environmental impact statement. But the importance is that it was in PD 1151 wherein this is first mentioned. So pursuant to the previously enunciated policies and goals, lahat ng agencies and instrumentalities of the national government, pati mga GOCC, and private corporations, firms, and entities shall prepare, o lahat kailangan gumawa, no? Kailangan gumawa. Prepare, file, and include in every action, project, or undertaking which significantly affects the quality of the environment, a detailed statement. Ito na nga yung environmental impact statement. Ano yung mga laman nito? Number one, or letter A, the environmental impact of the proposed action, project, or undertaking. B, any adverse environmental effect which cannot be avoided. So, ano yung masamang epekto ng project na to sa ating kalikasan na hindi pwedeng iwasan? Wala na ba tayong ibang mahahanap na paraan para maiwasan yung pag-damage sa kalikasan? No? C, alternative to the proposed action. So, pwede bang maiwasan? D, a determination that the short-term uses of the resources of the environment are consistent with the maintenance and enhancement of the long-term productivity of the same. And E, whenever a proposal involves the use of depletable or non-renewable resources kagaya ng mga puno, a finding must be made that such use and commitment are warranted, no? So, kung kailangan mo magputol ng mga puno para lang sa iyong project, kailangan mong i-justify bakit kailangan magputol ng puno para doon sa iyong proposal, okay? Before an environmental impact statement is issued by a lead agency, all agencies having jurisdiction over or special expertise on the subject matter involved shall comment on the draft environmental impact statement made by the lead agency within 30 days from receipt of the same. Okay? And that's it for modules 1 and 2. So we have other modules that will follow. So you can follow me on Twitter, on TikTok, and of course, you're watching this on YouTube. Maraming salamat and see you in the following modules.